Hi, and welcome to the Drum Can Do Festival. My name is Sunu Singh. Now, with changing consumer behaviors, what is the kind of retail that is likely to emerge? And more importantly, what is the type of society that's going to come out of this pandemic? With me to answer some of these very big questions, I have Helen Namoyle, Marketing Director of Boots UK. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you, Sunu. Great to be with you.
Um, Now, the first question I have for you is obviously Boots was appointed and named as the essential retailer by the government. So, what did that mean in terms of your business? Did you need to reinvent it, not just for your own employees, but also for consumers?
Yeah, look, that's a great question, Sanu. And if we cast our minds back now to almost 3 months ago, we were named an essential retailer by the government because of our role in looking after the welfare of people up and down the country through our brilliant, and really dedicated frontline colleagues, our pharmacists and our healthcare advisors in particular. And at Boots, we serve customers in three areas. We help them to get better in pharmacy. We help them to stay and live well in wellness and to look great in beauty. That's kind of how we see our purpose in our business. So as we went into the lockdown, it was really less of a reinvention in terms of what we do. We started the journey of modernization last year. It was more of a huge dialing up of our pharmacy and healthcare advice products and services. So during lockdown, as you probably know, we were focused on helping people to get prescriptions, to get advice, to get medicines, healthcare and other essential products that they really needed at that time. And we've played and continue to play a key role in partnering with the NHS. So like the other essential retailers who remained open, COVID has, however, meant that we had to reinvent to an extent how we do things. So that's what we do. That was just it was a massive dial up, but how we do things. So we had to make some significant changes to the way that we operate across our stores, across our e-commerce business, our supply chain and our support office, obviously all of our Marcoms plans. And these changes had to be implemented at a pace that none of us had ever experienced. I'm sure that's been your experience as well, and the experience of everyone that you've spoken to. So at a practical level, if I start with my own team and support office, we had to move to get hundreds of people working from home in really short order. So there was just the practicalities of getting mobiles, laptops, fobs that people could dial in through, get through firewalls and all of that. So that was our initial challenge, but that feels like another lifetime ago. It was so long ago. And for a lot of us, that's meant this incredibly fast adoption of Microsoft Teams, which to be honest has been a godsend at this time, and video conferencing facilities like Zoom as we're using now. But then as we look at our stores then, we have thousands of stores around the country, and the vast majority of our stores have remained open throughout lockdown, again, supporting our patients and customers by providing these essential pharmacy services and items. And while our customers and our colleagues have always been our priority, with COVID-19, we've had to implement a whole new raft of safety measures so that colleagues knew they were in a safe working environment. And that was the first thing, because our customers can't feel safe if our colleagues don't feel safe. And customers then also needed to feel that we were a safe place for them to shop or come get the prescription. So we moved really quickly to respond to this, and we were the first retailer to introduce the protective visors that you now see. We learned so much in the first few weeks of the pandemic, and we used those learnings to proactively add to and update our safety measures ahead of the latest government announcements, and in anticipation of more shoppers in the high street, as we're thankfully starting to see now. And so some of the measures that we originally implemented as temporary, because I don't think, in the early days, none of us could have foreseen how this was going to evolve, but they've since been updated to become more permanent, because I think a safe shopping message will be, a permanent, always on message for us, certainly over the next 6 to 9 months, I think. So new measures include upgraded PPE for all of our colleagues, new social distancing guidance in our stores, new social distance type of equipment, customer hand sanitizing stations in all of our shops, and also we're moving into digital beauty advice. And that really is important. And I know we'll talk about the high street later on, but it's so important that, people do come out, that they do feel that they can shop safely at Boots and at other grocers, and that we're putting the right measures in place for them. And I'm really pleased that recent research that was conducted by Kantar to understand how safe people feel when they're visiting stores showed that Boots is the best performing of 30 grocery and high street retailers. So 79% of those interviewed said that they strongly agreed they felt safe during their store trip to Boots. and 77% felt that the store was well organised to protect the safety of customers and colleagues. Now, we all love a good beauty product, I think. And, how we think about beauty and use beauty has obviously changed a lot over the last 12 or 13 weeks. And some recent research, by my colleagues in Number 7 found that 80% of British women say they're more likely to feel good about themselves if they wore makeup during lockdown. We see that kind of correlate probably with the presence of a video being on or off on our various calls. It's really important when people come back to shop beauty. It will be a different experience because, we took testers out early doors in the pandemic, and we're not going to have them back on the shop floor for quite some time. Nobody wants to go in to have a consultation that will involve, somebody putting makeup on their face. So we've really had to innovate as well. And so we're looking at how our specialists can offer touch-free consultations. We've got clearly PPE for all of our beauty colleagues as well. But we're doing online consultations with Number 7, Liz Earle, and our Boots beauty specialists, and really thinking about how we reinvent the beauty experience. Because we've seen in the last few days, customers are coming back to shop the whole store, not just the health and wellness part. And that's a really, really good thing to see. There was big changes as well for us in our supply chain and for Boots.com. I'm sure we'll come to this later on, and we've all kind of heard the expression that we've seen 10 years worth of change in 10 weeks. And we certainly saw at Boots that, and the word unprecedented is a much overused word, but it's overused for good reasons, because these really are unprecedented times that we're living through. But we saw that the level of demand for shopping online for Boots was it went through the roof. And at the height of the lockdown, we were selling more products online than we did on Black Friday last year, and we'd have months to get ready for Black Friday. So that just gives you a sense of the scale of the change. So we've recruited hundreds more people to work in our warehouses. We've brought in around 50 more cobots to help with demand. And we've put all of the right safety and hygiene measures in place so that our colleagues there also feel really safe. So, we've had to adapt, everything from, operating models to where we put colleagues in stores, and adapt and change all of that really at pace as well. And probably one of the biggest areas of change for us, as I've mentioned, was around healthcare and pharmacy. So we've been on a journey to transforming our pharmacy experience with Boots over the last year or so. But over the past few months in particular, we've massively accelerated that, particularly our digital pharmacy services and our healthcare solutions. We've been piloting new solutions at pace. We've been giving patients greater access to leading healthcare advice and services, so that they can get more convenience by organising and scheduling things around their own busy lives. And we've really deepened, we've always been a key partner of the NHS. We've really, deepened that relationship with the NHS. In addition to, all of the things that we do in the front line with prescriptions and healthcare advice, our pharmacists have also become part of the NH111 triage service, working with other healthcare professionals to manage minor ailments and to offer pharmacy expertise. And of course, since March, we've been working with the government and working with the NHS to support the setup and testing of drive-through stations for NHS workers who might have COVID-19. Yeah. So we've had 400 colleagues put themselves forward to be in the front line supporting this initiative. They're acting as testers and they're also acting as trainers. And that's obviously been hugely important to keep the NHS running and to support all the brilliant people that work there. And then one other thing that we've done, we very sadly see, the real demand for hygiene essentials, and for those living in poverty and for those on the front line of the NHS. We've donated over 500,000 products through our partnership with the Hygiene Bank and with FareShare, so that people who really need those hygiene essentials can get them, and also NHS frontline workers, so in hospitals, who don't have the time to get out and about, that we've provided that as well. And again, that really does link to our purpose of championing everyone's right to feel good. So hopefully, Celia, that gives you a sense of, we've really had to dial up what's at our core, which is looking after patients and looking after our customers, but really reinvent how we do things. And as I say, the pace of change has just been something else. And I think if we could go back in time, and if we were told as a business that at the beginning of March, that by the end of April, we would have delivered all of these things, we would have said, we'd really love to, but we need months to get this together, and it'll take a long time. But
Obviously a huge in terms of scale of transformation of the business that you just touched upon. And, it's incredible to think all of that happened in the last 3 months. Now, and you talked about dialing up, which obviously was needed in order to achieve everything that you just talked about. So can I ask you about marketing communications?
Yeah.
What was the intention there in terms of, was it dialing up, dialing down, whether it meant in terms of the tone, looking at the sensitivity of some of the themes that needed to be discussed, or not for that matter? I mean, did that need to change from week to week?
Yeah, it did, Sanu. It needed to change hugely, and I suppose there are two things that are really important here. The first being, we had to massively change how we worked. We're used to working to relatively long lead times, planned events, with almost 2,500 stores around the country. You can imagine the planning for the point of sale material that goes into stores, getting deals set up in the systems and all of that. Now, we were thankfully on the path to moving to agile ways of working and using scrums to deliver our campaigns so that we could reduce the lead time for delivery. And thankfully, we trained most of the key people across the team in agile methodologies and scrum models. Literally just finished the training about a week before lockdown. So, timing is everything in life, and thank God we had that in place. So I'll never forget, the Friday afternoon before we went into lockdown, a small group of us got together and we said, right, this is unprecedented, that word again, but we've never seen anything like this. And the only way we're going to be able to respond with pace is we're going to have to set up a scrum. So on a Friday afternoon, we created the outline and the framework for what that scrum would need to do and deliver. We based it on our brand pillars. We really looked at all of the research that we were seeing that had come out about what people were looking for, what was important. And then people came back into the office Monday morning and it was like, right, we're in this massively different new way of working. And a few days later, everyone was working from home, as I say, and on Teams. So setting up that framework was hugely important. And this is where I think Boots has such a strong purpose, and our brand pillars are they run through everything that we do. And having that clarity of purpose to champion everyone's right to feel good, and being really clear in our brand pillars around care and expertise, around value, around new and innovation, and around convenience, that really helped us develop the framework that has served us, very well, I think, over the last 12 months. So we thought about what we needed to do over and again, bearing in mind, none of us knew what was happening beyond the next few days. But we looked at this, the most important thing is that we let our customers and our colleagues know that we're there for them. So it was very much a join up of internal and external comms, and it has been. And I think what this pandemic has reinforced is the need to be locked at the hip. And that's something that I think you take for granted in normal times because you just are. But it made us really realize that anything we do externally, our colleagues really need to hear it first. So how are we doing that in lockstep? So that was, a really joined up way of working with our internal comms teams and the external comms teams. And we thought about what were the most important things for our customers and our colleagues. The first thing was to let them know what we were doing to support them in looking after their health and well-being. And that went around advice, impartial advice, and I'll come to that in a moment, and products and services. Then it was about what we were doing to make our stores safe for them. I mentioned that for colleagues and for customers. And then how they could access online and how we were going to update them and any changes to things like store opening hours or product availability. So we had to literally overnight scratch the marketing communications plan that had been in development for at least 6 to 9 months, put it to one side and go, we need something new and different. Yeah. So again, in a first for us, we created, and our agency partners at WPP were brilliant. Yeah. Honestly, they were with us the whole way through. I mean, everybody worked nights, weekends, and I'm sure that would be the story for every other retailer who's operated, throughout COVID. It was literally 7 days a week, really long days. But I think people felt very committed because we all believed in what we're doing. And again, it comes to the power of purpose, and really felt we were making a difference to our colleagues and to our customers. So we created a new campaign in little over a week. I mean, that's unheard of for us. Yeah. A hashtag prescribe kindness. And it was born out of the circumstances, and that we were seeing, in the early days, this was and it still is to an extent, but a very emotional period for our colleagues and for customers. no, we didn't know what we were letting ourselves in for as a country. Remember, it's hard to imagine now, but remember all the images we were seeing from
Yeah.
Italy, those tragic images of people in hospitals, and the fear that people felt that was now in the UK, and how are we going to handle it? And so it was really tough for our colleagues in stores in particular, and we wanted something that would inspire our customers to show appreciation for our colleagues, and our colleagues to show their appreciation for each other. So hashtag prescribed kindness surfaced the everyday but exceptional acts of kindness from our colleagues as told by our customers and other colleagues. And we really harnessed the power of social media to bring kindness and care into the national conversation. And the campaign was all about storytelling, people telling their own personal stories, and they resonated so massively across. And it's one of the best campaigns that we've ever run, and one of the ones that I'm most proud of, because I feel humbled to work alongside, the 40, 50,000 people across Boots, who, the people who've gone into the store every day, whether it was to provide pharmacy advice, to provide healthcare advice, to stack shelves. They've gone above and beyond to support our customers. And I'm so proud that we've developed a campaign to celebrate them and to enable those stories to be told. We've had pharmacists who've moved out of their homes because they didn't want to put their parents at risk, but their commitment to showing up for work to serve their customers was so strong. And I think brands can absolutely be a force for good. It's got to be authentic. And I think for a brand like Boots, that is a purpose-led brand, that is very authentic, I really hope that this appreciation that our customers have shown for our colleagues, that we're showing for our customers and our colleagues, that if as a nation we can keep this spirit going, to help us through the tough times that inevitably will lie ahead. What we found is that you cannot over communicate on this. When it's about things that matter to people, it matters to them personally, and it's about reassurance, that really matters. We also, early doors, recognise that Boots is one of the most trusted brands in the country. And, we're all familiar with the term fake news, and there's a fair amount of fake news out there about, let's not say who some of the very high level people around the world who, bring some of that fake news to life. But if we leave it at that, but, we saw that people were concerned about where they could go to get trusted advice. So one of the things we did was we started a daily social listening of the questions and topics that were on people's minds. And then we turned these into a series of questions, and we shot some short, snappy videos with our chief pharmacist, the wonderful Mark Donovan. And we put them out across our YouTube channel and across social. And again, we've just had the most incredible response to them. So over the last few months, and again, if you'd said to me at the beginning of March, we would film 84 videos, all done remotely, with daily social searching. I'd love to think we could do that.
Making sure that we're not all drinking Dettol to stay healthy.
Totally. Yeah. Seriously, I mean, who would have thought, So it's been interesting because we've seen the profile of our YouTube channel users really change. So we've seen, older audiences come in now. And I think that would be one of the stories out of this as well, how much more digitally savvy older people will be coming out of this, because it helps them. Because when you're self-isolating, the ability to shop online or get information online, can be a lifeline for people.
And I was forced to be able to do that because there's no other choice.
Exactly.
So dare I ask Helen about Christmas advertising, as the trusted, respected, loved brand that you're talking about. This is obviously the time when most brands, not just start thinking, in fact, start they're in the production phase for their Christmas ads. I mean, what do you think in terms of the big Christmas ads? Was 2019 the last of what we saw, the big Christmas ads? Is it going to?
If I've learned one thing, Sanu, it's not to make any predictions about anything. Because can you imagine if we'd been having this conversation in January, a mere 5 months ago, we would have been so. And I genuinely mean that, because I think the big thing for me is flexibility. Flexibility.
You wouldn't go for the big, huge sort of Christmas ads that a retailer like Boots. I mean, would you go for the sort of big singing and dancing Christmas ad?
So I'll answer that at two levels. One is, I think there's been some shifts in customer behavior anyway, and in terms of how people are consuming media. So if I look at our own Christmas campaign last year, we launched with a big 90-second spot. We took over on, ad breaks on TV, but more importantly in social media. And it was very much a digitally led mass personalization type of campaign that really delivered for us. And then we use TV to drive value communications.
Yeah.
So I think the big challenge, not just for Boots, for all brands this Christmas, Sanu, is will we be in or out of lockdown?
Yeah.
What will that do to how people are shopping?
Yeah.
Will we be able to meet demand in shops and online? So we're dealing with a set of questions and circumstances that we've never ever had to face going into Christmas. Yeah. And that's why genuinely I say flexibility will be key. So, it's challenging when you've A/B deadlines, but we know that the shifts in changing customer behavior, media consumption will continue. But perversely, the trend of declining TV viewing, well, we've seen TV viewing massively accelerate over the last 3 months. We've seen kind of consumption of Netflix and other streaming services massively step up. So it's kind of funny because, 6 months ago, we might have said declining TV viewing, particularly with younger people. And now we're having conversations about how much TV people are viewing, in particular, how much they're using streaming services and what opportunities does that bring us. So I think our approach is going to be staying really close to what our customers are doing. We're going to really think about, there's a whole other set of considerations, I think, for retailers to look at this year, which will be about how do they manage the flow of customers in and out of shops. So we've never had to think about that.
Yeah.
So how are we going to manage, the flow of traffic to the website, and how do we fulfill demand? So I'm sure all of us are sitting here thinking about this will be a Christmas like no other. Hopefully we'll never have a Christmas like this again. I think we all hope, pray for a vaccine and other solutions. But until then, this is the world that we're in. So my mantra to the team is whatever we do, it's got to be adapted. We can plan with one thing in mind, and we have to go with the plan. We have to put a stake in the ground. But we have to be ready to change it at the drop of the hat and to switch channels. So I'll be looking very much for flexibility to move our creative assets, to move our messages across different channels. And one thing is for sure, that the role of our Advantage card, the role of the Boots app, personalized and one-to-one communications, mass personalizations, that has become, it's always been important. We've been on a journey. It's a core part of, how we're modernizing marketing in Boots. That has become even more important because everything we've seen in the last few months is that one-to-one communication, that personalized communication, the response to that is massive compared to kind of a standardized broadcast message.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about retail in general. And obviously, you talked about the range of changes that have already occurred in the hundreds of Boots stores across the country. And of course, High Street hasn't had it easy for a very long time anyway, we know that. But what exactly is the kind of retail that you're anticipating? And, especially something like the beauty business, for instance, a lot of consumers like me, the allure has always been sort of taking a lippy and trying it and sort of turning to the customer next to you and saying, "Oh, what do you think?" So all of those behaviors will fundamentally have to change. Well, we won't be able to do that. So the shape of retail, how would that look? And you mentioned, the first day of sort of easing off, we saw hordes of people, we saw queues of people wanting to shop, and just within 24 hours, we saw the kind of drop-off rate in terms of the consumers queuing up, across the block. I mean, the changes are happening. The swings within 24 hours are huge. How are you preparing for that?
Yeah. And it's, again, I'll come back to flexibility. We have to be ready and able to adapt. So, I mentioned earlier on, we've all heard the phrase that we've seen 10 years worth of change in 10 weeks. And so clearly the role of e-commerce, the role of digital has accelerated. I think there is a question around how will, this too will pass. So we will come out of this at some point. We just don't know when. And I think one of the questions is going to be, how will the behaviors that we've seen unwind? To what extent will they unwind? And what will the new normal be? And I don't think any of us knows the answers, but my personal view is that there will be a new normal in terms of digital engagement. So whether that's shopping, getting information online, and I think across all age groups. I think the age group that's really interesting is older people because I think COVID has accelerated the need for them to connect. So whether it's practically so they can stay close to families and loved ones, through video conferencing in particular, because it's been been really tough. I know, my own parents live in Ireland, and I can't go home to see them, and it breaks my heart. And there are other people, in that boat. So I think that's accelerated. And then there's the practicality of shopping online, because particularly if people are shielding, and many people around the country are still shielding and might need to again in the winter, as we go into it, there will be a real need and a real demand. So I think some of the changes that we've seen over the last 3 months, I would expect them to maintain over the next 6 to 12 months. But then as this passes and we come out of it, I think there'll be a question around, well, one, what kind of world are we going to be living in? But two, what kind of high street will we have? And then I think there's a big question for government and policy on what kind of high street do we want to have in our communities. Because the people love to socialize. We're seeing it, people just want to hug. They want to meet their friends. It's, so I think there is a big question around, because everybody, people love shopping with their girlfriends, with their boyfriends, with their families and stuff. It's not just about the transaction. Yeah. It's about the experience as well. So as I mentioned before, Sinu, we're adapting our beauty experience because, people, we saw some research that was conducted by one of our media partners, asking people what they were looking forward to when they came out of lockdown. And the category that had the highest level of scores for people looking forward to was beauty and hair care. No surprise there. We're all waiting for our hairdressers to open again. And so there are a lot of people out there that just want to have a mooch. They just want to have a look, even in this new and different environment. So I think at Boots, we're looking to innovate and try things out differently. And that's what we'll continue to do over the next few months. And again, we'll just be flexible. We'll have to be flexible, but we're not going to have testers in the shop for a while. So we're going to have to find other ways. So whether that's through sampling or other ways of showing things to our customers. Clearly, the great thing about digital is we can really do some fantastic things across social media to really inspire people and to bring a product and to bring a brand to life. So I think more use of that, and as I say, more use of one-to-one comms. But we're in for a roller coaster, I think. Scenario.
Yeah, and I think the 3 months have taught the consumers as well. They're almost primed to try out new things as well. So you do have that kind of comfort to know that consumers know to expect something different as well. The other bigger question, of course, is around the society. The kind of society that you talk about, and you've given us some very life-affirming stories, and obviously Boots is a very special place in the hearts and minds of the British public, but also the fact that you're so closely aligned to the NHS, and also because health and pharmacy is such a huge part of the business, which are very emotional aspects for most people, because you don't sort of just stumble into a pharmacy, you go there with some intent and purpose. So as a brand, as a marketeer, how much do you think about, whether it is relationship with suppliers, indeed you've talked about your employers and consumers already, of the kind of society that would or could emerge out of this pandemic. And just to add to that question also is that, we've been having the conversation around equality at the moment as well. As a brand, how much are you pushing your suppliers, for instance, agencies and groups like WPP with whom you work, to try and dial up the whole conversation around that as well?
Yeah, I think we've all probably found professionally and personally that I certainly have on a personal level, that the pandemic has really given pause for reflection about, I feel very fortunate. I work for a very purpose-led brand that really has made a difference. And as I say, humbled to work with such amazing colleagues. Mm-hmm. And I think this pandemic is really throwing up, it's bringing into sharp relief some of the fissures that were there in society. And I think we're really seeing that play out. And I'm an optimist by nature. I believe in the best of people. And I see so many, you can always point to the things that are going wrong, but I see way more examples of people doing good things and kind things than not. And so if I step back and look at some of what I see coming out of this, I see communities people really reconnecting to their community, to their neighbours, to the streets that they
Yeah.
live in, and an empathy and to care for it. You know, the conversations that we're having as a nation about school meals and the basic right of every child to be fed, which as a mother, honestly, I get really upset when I think about kids who don't have enough food to eat. As a brand, we think about it. You know, that's why we started our partnership with the Hygiene Bank last autumn.
Yeah.
You know, Lizzie Hall, the wonderful founder of it, was the winner of our first, you know, Women of the Year Wellbeing Warrior Award. And timing is everything in life, Sinu. So it was really, we were rolling this out to stores anyway. So we were with the right partner at the right time to make a difference to people who need hygiene essentials. And we've now got Hygiene Bank collection points in many of our stores, and we're rolling them out to even more now. So I think I would say the importance of community, and this is where retailers can really make a difference because we're in communities, you know, and you know, Boots is at our heart, you know, we're also a community pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're sometimes maybe the only shop around in some localities. And so we really are looking at, you know, our role in community pharmacy, what we do, the difference that we make. And I'm sure other retailers will do the same as well. But I think if I see the seeds of reinvention, I think how do we as a society reinvent around communities, around, you know, local, as well as global, as well as national. And if I think about what that means for our communications and for us as a brand, we're very much on a drive to mass personalization. But I think we're now starting to think more about micro geographies, micro locations and communities, and what more can we do? Because we already are, but when you're a national retailer, what more can you do to provide your people on the ground with the flexible toolkits to drive even more? And so I think I would like to also think that, you know, the celebration of the good in humanity and the power of community, which, you know, we've seen played out again this past weekend at the marches in London, with the graciousness of people and the kindness. We've seen all the violence, you know, and the protests, but we've seen some wonderful sides to humanity. And as I say, brands can be a force for good.
Yeah.
And I believe brands should be a force for good. And so to your point then about the debates around, you know, racial equality and about diversity and inclusion, I think we all have a part to play in that, because at the end of the day, I think we should all strive to make our society as inclusive and as fair as possible for everyone. So yeah, so that they would be my key thoughts.
And one last question I have for you, Helen, is the future of the marketing role. So the future marketer, do you think that will fundamentally change now? Would you, for instance, if you were appointing your successor, for instance, would you be looking at some new skills that you wouldn't have thought, say, 3 months ago?
I honestly think resilience and flexibility. I think we've all, you know, had some highs and we've all had some lows. And I think what matters is, you know, bouncing back and picking yourself up and leading, and the importance of leadership. So I would say it's there's the technical skills that you need as a researcher, you know, as a researcher and as a marketeer. And I say research because I think being curious about your customers, loving your customers, you know, I think really understanding and really getting the fact that your colleagues are your ambassadors. They're probably the most important asset that your brand has, because that's where people are spending most of their time. I think, you know, COVID has really brought that home for the brands that stayed open. So really getting that and thinking about how we harness that even more in our marketing and communication. And also, so listening to customers, understanding what's important to them, understanding what's important to colleagues. All the stuff around understanding digital, I mean, that's a given now. Kind of making sure that we have joined up customer journeys, I think that's a given. So I think having the ability to be resilient, to be flexible, to be adaptable will be absolutely critical over the next 12 months, because despite our best efforts, none of us can really predict with any degree of accuracy, I'd say, what the future is going to hold. So putting a stake in the ground for a plan, absolutely, but then being willing to change it, knowing how to change it, and take the team with you in changing it, I think will be key.
Thank you. And thank you, Helen, for this fascinating discussion. and indeed giving us this optimism for the future as well. I think we could all use that. And viewers, thanks for watching. There's more to come in this Can Do Festival, and goodbye.